everybody. Raul here for Bass Musician Magazine, and today we have an extraordinary opportunity of catching up with one of our oldest and dearest friends. You've seen him here decades ago when we visited Ka. You've seen him here in his contributions to Bass Musician Magazine, both product evaluations and educational pieces. You've heard me talk about his albums. He does just an immense amount of stuff. Derek Jones, yay!
Hey, how you doing, Raul? Thanks for having me.
Doing great.
That's a lot.
So
Thank you.
good to get together here, Derek. It is
Yeah,
fabulous. As I had just mentioned, way back 14 years ago, we were visiting Ka, and we got a very in-depth behind-the-scenes view of what you do with the show, and seeing the show from both sides, both the audience side and the musician side, and grasping how intricately involved the music is as part of the whole experience. It was super eye-opening then, and since we have been super fans of Cirque, seeing Cirque performances both intense in coliseums, anywhere we could possibly see a Cirque show, we're there, because we're just always blown away by the creativity and the sheer beauty in so many ways of Cirque. But now, as we're talking, you've been with the show for over 20 years, and you've done how many performances so far?
as of last night, because we had 2 shows last night, 2 shows tonight. We do 10 shows a week. My anniversary was December 4th of 2024. I got started in 2004, December 4th. And so my 20th anniversary was last December 4th. But as of last night, it's 8,258 performances.
Wow. That is mind-boggling. So because we've kind of stayed in touch in between, I think one of the things we'd like to know more, again, now with all of these shows and just this whole body of work, and the whole time also you've been doing a whole lot of other stuff at the same time. Kind of bring us up to date. Tell us what's been happening over the years.
Oh, wow. Well, yeah, I'm always playing with other people because I've been a musician for 40 years now. Professionally, I started gigging when I was 15. But there's always, I used to joke that I did 20 years as a freelance musician, and now I'll give Cirque the next 20, and that's happened. Yeah. I caught a wave, in Nashville when I was living in Nashville, and auditioned just for Cirque, just for fun, and I caught a wave that's lasted a lot longer than I expected. But I'm very grateful, but I still go out and play as on my nights off if it's going to be fun, which is usually it is with my friends that I like to play with, and we do gigs here around town. I just did a couple of gigs our dark days are Thursday, Friday now. So last Thursday I played with our guitar player Jake Langley and his trio, and he's one of my favorite musicians, just wonderful. And then Noebo Gorgoy, I played with her at this place in the Flamingo, Havana, 1957, because I grew up playing a lot of Cuban music in the 90s with Laura Velato and all Bay Area musicians I grew up with in San Francisco Bay Area. So I like to keep track of that. And I always, Ramses Rodriguez, wonderful drummer from Cuba. So if I can lock in, I'm constantly trying to keep those tools honed.
Absolutely.
And I ended up doing a couple of records back in 2016. My friend Cookie Marenko at Blue Coast Records was like, we should do something. I'd done a bunch of work with her over the years with other artists, and went up to her place in Belmont, California, and ended up recording 23 songs in 3 days. and ended up being 2 records with all my dear friends that were on that album, Paul Hansen, Jeff Kopp, and Jenna Mamina, Brain, John R. Burr. Just had a blast laughing most of the time, and just playing different songs that we just picked, But yeah, constantly, I think I'm always afraid. There's this fear inside of me of not being complacent and still trying to continue to grow and listen to new things and find new things. And so pretty much the whole time I've been here, it's a balance, of course, because I've got, my wife and my kids. Yeah, it's just been a constant, maybe it's a little unfounded fear, but I like that edge of like, tomorrow the show could close. I'm not saying it's going to. I'm not wishing that in any
Mhm.
way. It's just for my own psyche. I've been in this business a long time, and
Yeah,
things happen.
sure.
I signed a 2-year contract when I started, and I figured, well, in 2 years I'll figure out what to do next, and never thinking it would be going on as long as it has, and how wonderful it's been.
Yes.
So, but I still try and keep that attitude of just being ready. So when things pivot, as life does, and I can be ready for that next thing and be grateful for everything that's happened so far, and continue to work on my playing. And that's the great thing about music. I think it was Tchaikovsky that said, music is enough for a lifetime, but a lifetime isn't enough for music.
Indeed.
So it's like, it's not, I hope to do this until I can't stand anymore and I'm in the grave. So there's a lot to continue to learn. So that's kind of what I've been doing, just kind of keeping that balance of my family and work and new things and recording. And it's amazing.
There you go.
It's absolutely amazing. I mean, like, I get to pick up a piece of wood, press a piece of metal into it, and put food on the table. Wow, I'm very, very fortunate and very grateful.
Nice. Well, you have such a versatile portfolio of skills, and it's one of the things, because you play electric, you play upright, you play fretless. You've got a whole big toolbox, which again is, I find, just in going between upright and electric, that narrows the field of potential bass players that can do things well. Because again, even I remember I chatted with Reggie Workman, who's a super jazz upright player.
Yeah.
And he basically said that they've handed him an electric. He won't play it. He says, "Well, let Victor and the other guys play that. I'm going to stick with my upright." So you have that widened gamma. And on top of that, is, if I recall correctly, you were very instrumental at the bass line as it is for Ka, because you were creating parts that go with the music. Tell me a little bit about that. And it's evolving. It's not a static thing as it is.
No, it's still evolving. When I auditioned, there was no show. It was just an open cast call for a couple of weeks in Nashville when I was living in Nashville. And so we just played all kinds of different things. I brought all my different instruments. And at that point, it's on the other, I think I talked about this on the other video. I don't want to go too long, but I just kept on, they would play a piece of music. I'd come up with a bass line. They would play a bass line. I'd have to play it after hearing it. Fine. But I got another idea, and I grab a different instrument, and I just kind of went, well, I'll just grab everything and let's try it on upright. Let's try it on fretless. Let's try it with a pick. Let's try it on this little Dan Electro bass, whatever I had. And I think that when the composer, Rene Dubray, was looking for a bass player, he said he wanted somebody that played upright, but also played fretless and, played all this different stuff. So when my name was put in the hat, and he was sent my the DVD of my audition.
Mm-hmm.
And then they basically, long story short, the gig's yours. When can you be here? And we started discussing it. And then Rene called me. He said to me, I'm not going to write anything for you. And it wasn't like I'm not going to write anything.
Yeah.
It was like, I really saw what you do in the audition, and I want you to feel free to listen to my music and do your thing on that. Mm-hmm. Which eventually he did. After I got here, I called my dear friend, my brother, Paul Hansen, the great bassoonist and one of the biggest musical influences of my life. And I called him. I said, "Man, go call this number and go play for them. You'll play 3 notes." And then all of a sudden he was in. And then Rene wrote a whole show called Zed around his bassoon playing.
Oh, wow.
In Japan. And the same thing. I'm not going to write for Paul Hansen. He knows what to do. He's created this whole new thing with the instrument. So I didn't know what that really meant, other than, okay, I'll come in. And of course, the orchestra part of the show, those had charts. And so I learned all the orchestra stuff for that. And then all the other stuff, there was nothing. So then I just sat in the studio as the shows were going, playing along and hearing ideas. And that's been that for 20 years.
Wow.
I have, and that's why I said, there's the Jurassic period of Ka, and it just keeps evolving into the Dark Age, whatever you want to say, and then, but now there's still new things. There'll be a new act or something coming in, and I'll have to adapt. And we all have, the musicians in the band, we have to adapt to that new timing, that new idea. And so I've been very, very fortunate and very grateful that I was able to write a bunch of stuff and come up with stuff. And I don't have to, we just discuss, here's an idea I have, and oh, try that. Here's an idea I have for this timing. And if it's, the latest thing was this, I played with the great Kai Eckhart. We had a trio in the Bay Area when I started taking lessons with him, and then he asked me to start playing his music, and it was a great honor. And I learned a lot from him, and he's a dear friend. So when I saw this, the Wheel of Death thing act,
yes,
and he gets set up for the jump rope, it's changed, the timing changed. And so it got longer. It was getting more intense. And so what can we do there? And of course, after the pandemic, I had forgotten a lot of things because I hadn't listened to the music. And so we came up with a lot of new stuff because it was like, well, just come up with new stuff.
There you go.
But I came up with this, I thought of Kai and I called it the kalimba slap stuff that he does, this beautiful chordal slapping thing that he's developed. And so I kind of took some of that and used it chordally to build tension to the jump rope and then hand it off to the drummer, because he goes into, then it becomes a drum feature behind the big jump rope thing on the top of the Wheel of Death. So that's like one of the more latest things. And again, that was just working, taking your life experience and letting it tell you what you should do.
Yeah.
And it's been great. And every once in a while I'll have friends come down, bass players, that one bass player from Broadway, he was like, dude, this is like Weather Report for Broadway.
I know.
Because it's just a lot of, you're jumping from bass to bass, tapping, or pick playing, tap, like fretless. There's all these different things that I've just kind of through my life have done. There's some sections of the show that's very like 2-beat. So for me, that's all the bluegrass playing I did with in Nashville with like Nickel Creek and more modern stuff with Nickel Creek and stuff with Jerry Douglas Band. But I think of them when I'm doing Doonch. I mean, it's simple stuff, but those were all influences on my approach to music and how I learned from them. So I just kind of let all that stuff come out. And if there's an idea, I'll think of the person. Like my Bobby Vega bass over here. I called Bobby when I got it. Hey, I sent him pictures. Hey, Bobby, because Bobby's been a dear friend for years and a mentor of mine from when I was young. He came down and sat in the studio, and it was such an honor. And he loved it. And he was like, man, I didn't think it was going to be like that. Whatever he thought it was going to be, it was different. He was very into it. We had Gary Carr and Harmon Lewis come down, because I met Gary and he had come to the show, and we hung out at his house when he was living here in Vegas, him and Harmon, and we became friends. And him and Harmon sat down in the studio, and they were like, wow, it was just an amazing experience. And I was like, really? Because you've played all over the world and kind of created the solo bass. Really this, he says, no, Derek, we loved this experience. It was we're such fans of Cirque, and it was so wonderful to sit in the studio. And it just reminded me that, 8,258 shows, I could have some Groundhog Days.
Oh, totally.
I could have days for weeks where I'm like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
What did I just play a show? But it's always a great reminder. I mean, as humans, we're going to have days like that. We're going to have days that, something weird happens, or, it's just like anybody's life and job. I work for a corporation. It just happens to be Cirque du Soleil. A friend of mine reminded me of that. He goes, dude, you're totally corporate. I was like, what?
Yeah.
And then I went, oh yeah, I guess I am. It's like, I've never thought, I've always thought of it. I'm the musician that goes down to the studio and we play 2 shows and I'm done and I go home and I'm working on music. But then I laughed, and he goes, dude, you've been corporate for a long time. And I was like, I guess okay. I work for a corporation. It's wonderful. Okay, great. I'll, but it was so funny. It just didn't dawn on me for years and years and years, decades. It's like, oh yeah. So it's funny, your perceptions and the days and how the days go by. But yeah, I still get to play the parts that I play. I get to support what's happening on stage and support the team of artists and technicians that are all doing a job that is so unbelievable. But then remind myself that, this is really, really special. Yeah. And sometimes when you have days where it's like kind of a grind, because we're human beings and we get locked into ideas or perceptions, the perception is not true usually. And so you have to remember that, my friends that I highly respect have seen the show and loved it. And I think Vic's seen it like 4 times.
Yeah.
And he's still like, dude, I'm like, wow, thanks, brother. It's like, it just, we've been friends a long time. And so guys that I highly respect have seen the show and they really loved it. And so I'm like, okay, well, then I'm not going to be an idiot here and question anything. I'm just going to every day play one note at a time.
There we go.
And that's really what it is, right? It's one note at a time and try and build on that.
Well, and you're very humble from the point of view that this tree of bass that is part of the Ka forest is you. This is your thing, guys. Again, as the creator, and I had the opportunity. I was chatting with Joseph Patrick Moore the other day, and he had been
dear friend. I love him.
He'd been a sub for Ka, but part of what he was saying is his job was to match you. It was to be the Derek for the day if you weren't the one in there, and that was the challenge because of the versatility, because of the trails that you have blazed to make this music. And again, I think the huge part of it is that as we live, even on a day-to-day basis, as normal human beings, a lot of times we're listening to music and we think of it as the soundtrack to our everyday life. You hear a song on the radio while you're driving and you go, oh yeah, I remember. For me, Earth, Wind & Fire, September is our Volkswagen station wagon that my dad got, this crazy lemon-colored bug. So there was music in that. You've created the music of life for Ka from the bass perspective, because again, you're surrounded also by extraordinary musicians, both your musical director, the drummer, vocalist, a whole Ka language. It's just so all-encompassing, but it is what creates this window for the audience member to have this greater than just seeing something experience, and it reaches in deep. And so when I do, even if I replay, we had the great fortune to be in the pit. When I replay some of those segments, it triggers our, oh yeah, I remember sitting here and feeling what I felt when I heard this. So it's just well beyond, it's just a score. And what I will say, I've had the opportunity to talk to quite a few Broadway players, and the music is extraordinary, but so many times it is, we need this to be exactly this and exactly the way we want it. And they don't have much of a choice. If they were fortunate and they came in on the ground level, then maybe they had some influence creating the parts. But look at your touring shows. I mean, they're given the book and it is expected to be exactly how we want it to be, down to what instrument are you playing now? I mean, we talked to the guys that play in Hamilton, and they've got an extraordinary, they have 2 sets of pedals. In case one goes out, they've got a backup whole pedal board because it has to be so specific. And so this is just, I think, why people like Victor, people like Kai, anybody that comes and hears this can see what I've just mentioned. It's just like, whoa, this is a whole other thing. So again, we're just always thrilled to talk about it. Now, you mentioned in the evolution of the show, and I know performers age, and this is so demanding. There has to be changes, but the main storyline, I think Kai is one of the few shows that has, I think, such a consistent plot to it as compared to some of the others where you're kind of going, I don't know what we're talking about. There's a giant snail. I don't know why. They may be a little trippier. Has there been any changes in the plot, or is it, again, more in some of those subtle details of the acts?
More in the subtle details of the acts. Ka was the first show to be based on a storyline, 2 battling factions and 2 kids that get separated in that battle, lose their parents, and have to reconnect throughout the show to meet up at the end. And it's based loosely on maybe some Chinese opera concepts. And again, it's not like, we have a narrator that tells the story beforehand. You can hear him talking about what the show is going to be about, because focus groups were like, we don't know what's happening. But that's the thing about art that's beautiful, right? I mean, everyone comes into the theater and has an experience for themselves. So I don't know. I mean, like us, like Mystere, you mentioned the snail.
Yeah.
Yeah. But where else do you see that?
Oh, I know.
You can say, you know what I mean? It's like you go to where else do you see a show like that? Yeah, or when you say MJ1, each show is its own entity, which is wonderful. And each show, I mean, I think people, when you go into a museum or anywhere and you see something and it grabs you, you can't explain why. It's like dancing about architecture, right? It doesn't make any sense. It's just a moment.
Yeah.
But I think, to answer the question of, the idea from beginning to end has been constant, but the way we get there has evolved. So different acts have come in, different ideas, different lighting ideas, different sound concepts. As it evolves, it's like, okay, we really need to focus on this point, and there's always, I mean, it's 13 stories tall, right? So there's a lot of space.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of ways of looking at it. We had a group of kids come from a music and art school from St. George, and I talked to them a little bit, and they were asking, how do you, I guess the question was, how do you keep it fresh every night? You know? And they were sitting on level 2, which back. So behind me was the whole stage. And I turned around and I said, look at that. It's a space. It's this massive 7 stages that move. There's all this stuff. Where do you see all of it? You don't.
No.
There's always a moment somewhere, someplace where you will look at something. And that's what I try and look for. I'm watching it 4 stories below and 2 television screens. But just to say, there's always a moment where you're going to notice something different that you didn't notice. I've done this show, over 8,000 times. There's still a moment sometimes where, and I'm watching on the screen. So I said, look, never preconceive anything because you miss so much.
Yeah.
I mean, Sheila E. came, to the show, and I worked with her and her father. I worked at PS Studio 4 years, and it was just a lovely, amazing experience. And worked with Sheila a bunch, and she comes in with pops and moms, and she goes, "You had me in the lobby, man." I walked into the lobby, and I was like, "There's something happening here." And I'm like, and this is Sheila's seen everything, been everywhere, done everything. She's one of the icons.
Yeah.
And I what am I going to do? Tell her she's lying to me? No. I took that as like, yeah, she gets it. And then she came up into the, it doesn't look like anything until you come up into the theater, and then you got this fire flying out from this hole in the stage, and you're like, where am I? And it's just massive, 2,000 seats. And she was like, I was gone, but she was open to it. And I think everybody's different, and everybody's going to have their opinion. The idea of this show has stayed, but how we get from point A, point B, and point C has evolved. It's got to, right? It's got to, technology changes, everything changes, new lighting, new everything. Things look different. New people come in and they have their ideas, and so it's very open to their ideas.
Nice.
And we keep trying new ideas. I think it's fine when people say, I didn't get it. Great. But what did you feel? What did you enjoy?
Yeah.
I think it's a metaphor. I think art is, that's the start, man. It's like, sit down and you don't have to like it.
Yeah.
But see what you might find out about yourself and the others around you.
Indeed. And one of the things I'll mention, and I will clarify, with Mystere and the giant snail, sometimes I think it's like when you're standing in front of a painting and you're asked, it does make you ask yourself, what am I seeing here? What does this, how am I interpreting this? I mean, the sheer creativity of it alone is mind-boggling. And I had the good fortune of catching Love before they closed, the Mirage. And again, so distinctively different. And having grown up with the Beatles, as a matter of fact, the Beatles are a reason that my path in music changed, because before they came out, I was an accordion player, and I was playing polka with the Frankie Yakovich and the polka circuit, and and the Beatles show up, and I'm like, oh no, you can't do. I need a guitar, because they're not out there playing accordions. They're playing guitars. So the perspective changes, but it does. I think the 2 points. One, it will make you look at in the bigger picture and the details, trying to see, okay, what am I feeling? What am I taking away with this? And even the greater part is that you may need to go to the museum and look at the same painting more than once to see the next detail. And this is where, as we continue to see Cirque shows, even the same ones, time after time after time, that we will see something new, something different, and or comprehend something that we might have missed previously. So, of course, my point being, people, if you've already seen Ka, go back and see it again, because you might get something totally different out of it,
Mm-hmm. For sure. Yeah.
So all that said, as we look ahead, I know, Ka, we're very excited about that. Do you have any other projects in the works? Because that's the other beauty. You have some time to yourself where you can do other stuff. So what do you have going on?
I've kind of played with the idea of doing some more product reviews, or, I've got some camera setups now. I don't really teach right now. Haven't really focused much on that. I have some friends of mine's kids that I'll get together with, and we'll just talk about, what do you see when you hear this, or like, we'll just get these weird kind of concepts, but focusing on my family and my playing. I still practice every day, and trying to find new things. That's really my focus. I don't know what products, I don't know how that works. I do sessions at home, so I have people, songwriters and stuff, send me stuff, and I'm able to do that, which is great, and I love doing that. But and then there isn't any plan, right? It's like it's just I get up every day and continue to keep playing, and people go, man, how have you done this for so long? Or maybe I just didn't stop. I just when the pandemic happened, I was like, oh, okay, now what's going to happen? We didn't work for 18 months, but I still played every day. And I got my son through 3rd grade online, which was a thing. But there was never a sense of like, hey, I'm not going to, what else am I going to pivot to? Like, nah, I've been doing this for so long, man. And it's worked out okay so far. And I still love it. I still, the whole reason of doing this for me was just to be able to meet people from all over the world, and be Earth centric.
Yes.
Like, it's just meet somebody that I don't know their language, but I can sit with them with their instrument. I can sit with mine, and we can play and find something.
Yes.
And smile. And I've had that happen over and over again. And then I learned something from them. Maybe they learned something from me. Then I eat some food with them, and we're buddies. And, music has a really interesting way to do that, because it's better when more people are involved.
Indeed.
It's one thing to be your solo thing, and it's great, but as soon as 2 people show up in the room together, now you have to be aware of them. You have to care for them, and you have to want to hear what they have to say on their instrument, and maybe learn how to make that sound better by accompanying them. And then maybe they'll accompany you, and all of a sudden something greater than the combination of those 2 or 3 or 5 or 20 people happens. Then it's like magic, right? Then it's just, and that's what I still live for. I remember I read an interview with Stanley Clarke way back when I was still in high school, or maybe just out. And he says, man, those magical moments, we don't have those maybe once a week when we're on tour, but we'll have them once or twice, but when it happens, that's what keeps you going for the next one.
Absolutely.
And I went, well, that's beautiful, because if it happened all the time, you'd be like, but when you have those moments, you recognize them, you honor them, and you cherish them. And that's I won't say that's only when 2 or more people are playing together, but there's something about that, man. And when the audience can hear it, they're a part of it too. There's an energy between all of us.
Yes.
That happens. And if everyone focuses on not themselves, but the other as you're playing, there's a thing that we can't speak about that happens, that we know happens, where people's perspectives change. They feel better about themselves. They learn something about others.
Mm-hmm.
My whole career is based on other people being very kind to me and sharing their lives with me. And sometimes that sharing was, don't do that.
Yeah.
Hey, you sucked. And it was hard, but it was like, but I respect this person. And what are they really telling me? I mean, you can learn from everything, right? You can have a mistake. You can have a really, really bad gig, but you can come away from it and go, okay, that one thing, I got something from it.
Mm-hmm.
Now it was worth something. So if you keep an open mind and kind of, I like try to tell myself this all the time, like, we can always worry. Worry's easy. Anybody should worry,
yeah.
But man, if you just, I mean, my whole focus, and I've been so fortunate to have it, and I've been so fortunate to play music for my whole life. And it's always been about just wanting to meet people, wanting to meet them. And if you wear your heart on your sleeve, which you kind of have to as an artist, that heart's going to get damaged at times,
mm-hmm.
but it's so worth it to meet another person that has their heart on their sleeve. And then that's a bond that won't ever be broken. And that happens. I mean, I guess it happens in other art forms. I'm not going to say it doesn't. I mean, dance, you're dancing with a troupe.
Sure.
That's a thing. Sculpture, you're dancing with the material that you're working with. And painting, you're dancing with the paint.
Mm-hmm.
There is a relationship with everything. Molecules are molecules, right?
Yeah.
So, there's we're all molecules, the way sound moves through us. I'm very grateful that I can feel that and experience that with others that I've had my whole life. And we talk about it, and we talk about it in reverence, because you can't really decipher it. I don't want to know why it happens. I'm just grateful that it does. And music, whether you're a teacher and you teach and or you're playing at the biggest stadiums in the world or whatever, it's all the same if you're just touching people's lives and making it a better place. And I think Cirque does that in an amazing way. But I think also for my future and things, every day I get up and try to have my skills honed so that I don't have to think about how to do it. I just allow it to happen. Okay. Practicing is working out all this stuff so that when you're in a situation with new people or new experience or a new club or a new whatever, new music hits, you got 5 minutes. Here's the charts. We're going to go out and hit.
Mm-hmm.
You're not thinking about this. You're thinking about this.
Yes.
I'm okay. I've got this pretty nailed. I think I'll be all right. I mean, I'm not, there'll be things that'll happen. Everybody's going to be like, we've got these charts 5 minutes ago and we got to do a set. That happened, right? Got them on the iPad. Let's go. Okay. Singer's there, guitar player, drummer, horn section, pianist. I think all these guys got their stuff together. Let's see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
Now I don't have to think about where's my position of my hand or how am I going to get to this. No, I've been working all that my whole life. I can trust that now to get me there. Now I can be outward focused. And if you can be outward focused in anything that you do, people are going to notice that. I tell my son this all the time. It's like, if people will notice how you treat them.
Yeah.
And no one's perfect. Human beings make mistakes. We all do. If we can learn from them, great. If we can't, well, there'll be another lesson coming at some point. But with music, I'm just so grateful. And as a bass player, man, I love the responsibility of it. The responsibility of being the glue that kind of is in the harmony, the melody, the rhythm. We have to be a good rhythm player. We have to know how harmony works so that when we change our bass notes, we know what it's going to do to the chord. We have to be really aware of melody, not to play. I mean, play melody is great, but to be able to accompany a melody when the singer starts singing, know when to play, when not to play. That's really important, when not to play. Joe Lovano said, "Hey man, I play the spaces, not the notes."
Yeah.
That changed everything for me. Or my friend Jake Langley, who I just love him, and he was talking about hanging with Joe LaBarbera, and Joe LaBarbera said, "Don't lament the music that was never played. It doesn't exist."
Mm-hmm.
It's heavy, man, because we get in our heads after the gig. Oh, I wish I would have played. I wish I would have done. It doesn't exist. It never happened.
Yeah.
So you're lamenting about something that is out of your control, that you had no part in, because it never was played into the universe. It's just something in your mind, but it never was played. So you can't lament the fact that you didn't play it. You can lament the fact that I wish I could have. Well, now I have work to do.
Yeah.
Great. I'm not going to lament anymore. I'm going to go, oh, I've just been taught something. I need to focus on this. This is important. Okay, I'm going to get this. So the next time it happens, maybe I'll have that a little bit better. But man, I think it's more what we don't play than what we play. As a rhythm section bass player, the spaces, the dynamics, that's where the lifetime of experience and constantly hearing new people and listening and playing with different people. And I cherish that, being able to go, okay, do I have to play here? What happens if I don't? Because I think a lot of people are focused on how many can I do?
Yeah.
I've been working on this thing, I mean, I could talk forever about it. The new Michael Brecker book that my friend Chuck Shear put out, where it's all his practice stuff. Uh-huh. And you see him talk about, like, the first 2 pages of, like, I never transcribed solos. I just would hear one measure of a solo. Oh, what was that? Or 2 measures. And I'd write that out. Yeah. And I'd learn it in all 12 keys, and I would play it for 3 or 4 months every day. And then when I was on the gig and it just came out in my playing, that's when he came out in his playing. That's when he knew it was part of him now. Mm-hmm. But he never transcribed. Like Joe Lovano, I said, I never transcribed solos, man. I just would try and emulate the emotion that it made me feel. That's, where you get your original ideas from. Your original sound, your thing, is by honing in on those things instead of the note for note, all the stuff. And hey, if it calls for a lot of notes, I have no problem. I'm not judging people's note choices or playing fast or doing all this stuff or whatever you do in your music that works for you. I'm not here. No one can judge you for it. Yeah. If it works for you, great. But I think it's just, as long as you're being honest and and learning in the process and growing, it's all good. This is why we do it, right? In my opinion, this is why we do it. It's just I'm trying to find a deeper part of myself that I can share with everyone. And that's scary, but I know it's in there. Yeah. And I'm going to honor that as much as I can and be grateful for it and help and allow it to guide my choices. And I think when we can be free to be who we are and what we do, then there's no judgments, right? There's improvement, there's evolution, but I can't say that singer sucks because they did this or that trumpet player or whatever. You can go, wait a minute though, what are they trying to get to? Yeah. What path are they on, and how do I get out of their way so they can get on that path? And maybe I can help them along their path when I'm playing, and we can get on the same path. Maybe sometimes I'll check out this path. Man, it's a lot to think about, but it's what I try and do whenever I grab my bass and I'm with a group of people. How can I get them on their path? How can I get on their path? Well, what am I going to learn from this path? And then maybe when we're done with the gig, I can drive home on my own path and go, wow, that was really cool. Well, that didn't work, but part of it did, yeah. and I can make a mental note, and then the next day get up and try again. Nice. Anyway, hope that helps somebody.
Oh, absolutely. Well, and I think one of the key things, and those of us that live in music, it is that spirit of collaboration between human beings, which gives it the universal nature. Where one of my favorite, there's a whole series of videos, they're playing for change, and it's musicians all around the world collaborating on a tune, and each one with their own instrument or their own take on how they would do it. But if humanity in general could maybe follow the example of the collaboration between musicians, we wouldn't spend so much time disputing, and we would spend more time trying to understand each other, where we're coming from, and working together towards a common goal, which is the music, the show. I mean, it could be as small as you could be two people busking on a corner in Beale Street. I mean, that is still a collaboration. And one of my favorite things, I believe it's one of the flutes that the Incas played, that by design, they don't put all the notes on the same flute, so that you have to play with another flutist to have the full scale. And that way you have to collaborate between the two of you to have the parts to make the tune. And so it's kind of a deep philosophical thing. We could obviously, the rabbit hole is way bigger than what we could.
The rabbit hole's way bigger, and then you have the arguments for AI and all this stuff.
Yeah,
which I think is kind of the argument when you were a telegraph operator and the phone came along.
Yeah,
and you went, oh no, man, the phone's going to be this little thing, but the telegraph's going to be happening. I'm going to stick with the telegraph. I mean, it's a little bit weird, but with the advent of computers and all that stuff, there's still collaboration happening. You know, I don't think you could discount the wonderful thing of having a computer with logic and all this stuff, and then maybe having, you know, certain things, you know, you can use AI in certain ways as a tool or as a collaborative tool.
Yeah.
You know, who knows how it's going to evolve, but that's the next thing that's happening, right? And everybody's trying to figure it out. And my point of view is like, they're not going to figure out until it happens. It's just, It's happening now. And it's not going to get turned off. And it's not, you know, you're not going to stop using your smartphone, and you're not going to stop using technology like this where we can talk. And it's just how we choose to use it as a species, and how it evolves through that usage. So all this fear and freaking out about, oh, you know, all the musicians are going to lose. You know, I've heard that, you know, like we talked earlier about, people have been saying Ka's going to close for 15 years. Okay. Okay. And everything closes, right? Everything stops. You know, there's a wave, and I caught this wave, and I don't know where that wave is. It could be right here, ready to crash, and it's over, or it could go for a little while longer. I don't know. Nobody knows. Yeah. You know, so nobody knows what's going to happen with the AI thing. You know, they can speculate and do all this stuff and say, and I think this and that. Hey, and that's great, but we'll see. That's my favorite phrase. All right, we'll see.
There we go.
I don't know if Ka closes. We'll see. I mean, or if something goes on forever, we'll see. There's no judgments here. It's just, you might be right. You might be wrong. We'll see.
There we go. There we go. Well, Derek, we appreciate you taking time to share all of your insight. Folks, if you want to stay on top of what Derek's doing, your website, derekjonesbass.com.
Yeah, there you can. I mean, I haven't been on it in a while. I've been so busy, but I do try. All my products that I endorse. I mean, Elixir strings have been played on every show on Ka. I'm a huge fan of them and very grateful for them for all their support. And AccuGroove cabinets, Mark Wright's a friend, and I use his stuff. Trickfish Audio, I just got this little rig here for small upright bass gigs, and yeah, I use a bunch of stuff, but it's all on the website. You know, so yeah, you can go there and you can say hi, and it's pretty cool. My buddy Hovak, Alaverdyan, Ellen Alaverdyan's dad, took all his pictures, and Ellen's mom, Maureen, did all the makeup, and they're all in the family.
Nice.
So, you know, it's great.
Nice. Well, and do you do much on social media as well, or should we stick mostly to your webpage?
You know, I kind of, Facebook, I'll get on it for a minute, and then I'll just, I gotta get off, and I just take it off my phone. And Instagram, I mean, I probably should do some more. Instagram, I'll do some more videos, but then I'm like, and there's so many people doing videos. And that's okay. I just don't know if I have anything more to add.
Gotcha.
So mostly it's my website. I think that's pretty much, you know, people. I check in on Facebook just to see people. So I have my Messenger app up, so if somebody messages me on Facebook, I see that, you know. But I don't really. It's mostly on the website, and you know, I try to reply to everybody. But I could be better at that. Yeah. You know, I could be better at that skill. So I'm working on it.
There we go. Well, and of course, if people want to catch you, see Ka, They can go to the Cirque du Soleil website. And again, I tell
Ka.com. Just go to Ka.com.
Yeah.
Ka.com. KA.com is the website for our show. And CirqueDuSoleil.com. And, we're there Saturday through Wednesday.
Nice.
10 shows a week.
Well, and as I've told so many people, if you come to Las Vegas and you're going to see a Cirque show, my first choice is always Ka. And
thank you.
That's why I'm telling them this is the one you want to see. If you have time, see as many as you can, because they're all different. They're all so creative. They're all so wonderful. It's just amazing. So again, Derek, thank you for taking time to chat with us. Folks, you've seen him here on Bass Musician Magazine, Derek Jones.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate you, and Raul and Valerie. You're just awesome. And everybody have a great day and continue on.
Thank you.